Hello everyone, I am Priyanka Gaur. Welcome back to my channel Learning with Pace. In this English prose series, we are going to continue the analysis of myself, which is an essay written by Abraham Cowley, and this is the third part of the analysis. If you haven't watched the previous two, then I'll attach the link in the description box for your convenience. So now let's start the analysis. You may see by it, I was even then acquainted with the poets. So here, even then is referring his childhood days, and acquainted means familiar. So Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that how his inclination towards poetry started. So by this line, Abraham Cowley meant when he was just 13 years old, that time also he was familiar with several poets and the works written by them. For the conclusion is taken out of Horace. So here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that the conclusion of the ode, which he completed when he was just 13 years old, and the part of the ode he has already added here in the essay. So the conclusion of this ode is taken out from the works written by Horace. And perhaps it was the immature and immoderate love of them. Immoderate means limitless or the extreme love. So here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone, since he was familiar with the several works written by several poets, so his love towards these poets and the works written by them, the love was immature and extreme love, which stamped first or rather engraved these characters in me. And the love towards these works or these poets has not only stamped, in fact, it has engraved the characters in the mind of Abraham Cowley. And when something is engraved in your mind, it can never be erased, okay? And it expands with your age. So here Abraham Cowley is giving an example of a young tree. They were like letters cut into the bark of young tree, with which the tree still grows proportionably. So here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that if you will put letters in the bark of small tree, then as the plant grows, as the proportion of plant grows, the letter will also get bigger. So in the same way, the characters that engraved in the mind of Abraham Cowley also expanded with the age. But how this love came to be produced in me so early is hard question. So now Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that if you will ask me that how this love started, it is very hard question to answer, because Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that he also does not remember that how this inclination towards poetry started very early. But subsequently he is telling a little chance, he is telling a little memory and recalling his childhood days that how this love started. I believe I can tell the particular little chance that filled my head first with such chimes of verse as have never since left ringing there. Abraham Cowley is saying that it's very hard to answer that how his inclination towards poetry started so early, but still he can share a little chance. He can share a little memory that how his inclination towards the chimes of verse, towards the rhythmic music of poetry started. And since then it is ringing. And after that he could not give up on poetry. For I remember when I began to read, to take some pleasure in it, there was wont here means used to, okay, used to lie in my mother's parlor. So during medieval Christian times, the mother's parlor, so the parlor here meant the place where monks and nuns used to live, and they used to have the conversation with the outside world, okay. So here Abraham Cowley is telling us the memory, the little chance. So what kind of memory he is sharing? That he is he's still into the memory. He still can share that how he started reading and how he started finding pleasure in reading when he used to sit in his mother's parlor. I mean, in a place where monk and nuns used to sit. And from here we can get the idea, might be his mother was a nun. I know not by what accident, for she herself never in her life read any book but of devotion. Here, Abraham Cowley is talking about his mother and telling everyone that his mother never read any book except the devotional books, except the religious books. And the reason is still unknown to Abraham Cowley. But there was wont to lie Spencer's work. Now Abraham Cowley is saying in his mother's parlor there used to be several works, several works that written by Spencer, and the works were in the parlor of his mother. And this I happened to fall upon, and there I started reading Spencer's work and was infinitely delighted. I mean, infinitely found pleasure with the stories of knights, with the stories of giants and monsters and brave houses. Brave houses means noble houses, which I found everywhere there. So here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that his mother never read any book except the religious books, and in his mother parlor he found many works written by Spencer, and he found pleasure in reading Spencer's work. He went through many stories like stories of knights, giants, monsters and noble houses, etc. And he found the works or the books that written by Spencer. He found these books everywhere in his mother parlor, though my understanding had little to do with all this. So here Abraham Cowley is saying that he could not understand what is written in the works of Spencer because he was just 13 years old. Okay. But by degrees, with the tinkling of the rhyme and dance of the numbers, so that I think I had read him all over before I was 12 years old and was thus made a poet. So here Abraham Cowley is saying that he was just 13 years old, so he could not understand what is written in the works of Spencer, but still he read all the books. Okay, he read all the books, and that's where he found pleasure, and he completed most of the books before he was 12 years old. And this is how the love towards poetry started, and he made a poet. So since childhood he always wanted to establish himself as a poet. So now, so far what we have read, here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that he used to sit in his mother's parlor and used to read all the books and found pleasure in reading the books. There in his mother's parlor he found the works of Edmund Spencer and the works written by him. Okay, so Edmund Spencer's work was full of the stories of knights, giants, monsters and brave houses. So he completed the works written by Edmund Spencer before he was 12 years old. And by degrees, I mean gradually or slowly, with the tinkling of the rhyme and dance of the number. So here he is talking about the rhythm or the musical tone of the poetry. So he is saying that gradually, when he read all the poetry and when he read all the works written by Edmund Spencer before he was 12, so that's how his inclination towards poetry started, and तभी से उनके मन में ये था कि वो एक पोइट बनना चाहते हैं. Although इस टाइम पर he was just 12 years old, he could not understand the whole crux or the whole meaning of these poetry, but still he read all of them, and gradually the love started towards poetry. These affection of mind and my heart wholly set upon letters. So here Abraham Cowley is recalling his youth days now. He is saying since childhood he was into poetry and his mind always inclined towards poetry. Okay, set upon letters means poetry. I went to university. Abraham Cowley went to a university, which is Cambridge University. So why he went to university? Because he wanted to study further and he wanted to establish himself as a poet. But soon torn from thence. Thence means there. Okay. And torn means expel, matlab nikal dena. So here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone when he went to Cambridge University, he was expelled from there. Why he was expelled? Due to violent public storm. So here violent public storm is used for civil war. And why Abraham Cowley was expelled? Because that time in civil war, Abraham Cowley was supporting the brave houses. He was a royalist. So that's why he was expelled from the university. Which would suffer nothing to stand where it did, but rooted up every plant, even from the princely cedar to me the hyssop. So here Abraham Cowley is saying that due to civil war, everyone had to suffer. Okay, this war was harmful for everyone because it rooted up every plant. Every plant here is referring everybody, every person. Okay, this civil war ruined every person. Even from princely cedar, that means even from reputed people, to me, who is hyssop. Hyssop is basically a small bush, okay, a small plant, and princely cedar is used for reputed people. So here Abraham Cowley meant this civil war ruined everybody. Everybody had to suffer due to this civil war, and it rooted up every people, even from the reputed family to the middle class family. Okay, मतलब अब्राहम कावले खुद को मिडिल क्लास फैमिली में इंक्लूड करके कह रहे हैं कि इस सिविल वॉर ने सब कुछ ख़त्म कर दिया था, चाहे कोई वो रेप्यूटेड फैमिली से बिलोंग करता हो, चाहे फिर मेरे जैसा कोई आम आदमी हो. ओके, सो इट वॉज इक्वली हार्मफुल फॉर people like from reputed to people like middle class. Okay, yet I had as good fortune as I could have befallen me in such a tempest. Here tempest is telling or referring public storm, I mean civil war. So Abraham Cowley is saying that he was still fortunate enough because in this tempest, in this civil war, he was having a good luck. Okay, his luck was with him. For I was cast by into the family of the one of the best person, into court of one of the best princes of the world. Because in this civil war, when he was expelled from the university, so he got the support from the princess and he used to live in the court of the princess. So he's saying in this civil war, he was fortunate enough that he was living with best persons. Okay, and that time in the civil war, he was living in the court of the princess. Now, so far what we have read here, Abraham Cowley is telling about civil war. Okay, and this civil war disturbed everyone, right? This civil war disturbed everyone, and it not only equally harmful for the reputed people, in fact for the common people like Abraham Cowley. Now subsequently Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that he was fortunate enough, okay? He was fortunate enough during this civil war. Why? Because during this time he was living with the family of one of the best persons. Here he is talking about William Harvey. So he was living with William Harvey's family for 10 years. He was there, he was living with them, and in civil war he followed princess. Okay, and now by giving this word princess, he is referring Henrietta Maria. So he is saying that he followed princess to Paris and he found shelter in the court of the Henrietta Maria. And that's how he is telling everyone that he was very fortunate enough that he found shelter in such tempest and he was living with the family of one of the best persons. So the rest part of the essay we will complete in the next video, and once the whole part will be completed, I'll compile all the parts in one single video. Thank you so much for watching this video. You can follow me on Instagram. You can join my Telegram channel as well. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Keep learning.